here with Dieter Staudinger and Eric Larson. And we're here once again for Fearless Flight Live for another episode. And this is the place that we encourage you to come if you have any trouble flying, or you know somebody that isn't a big fan. And we'll get you in the air. And tonight we're going to have a couple of people who just did that just a little over a week ago. So we got a couple things in the news there. Let me go to the slides here real quick, and then we'll back out of that. Just gotta get the slides up. Okay, I shouldn't have done that.
We're going to also talk about our upcoming Cleared for Takeoff 101, both online class, and then if you're anywhere close to Phoenix, we also have a free class at Sky Harbor Airport coming up. If Ron brings up, perfect, there are the slides. Take it away.
We got more shows and stuff coming up than you can shake a stick at, and we really do. We've added a bunch of stuff, and we're really proud of that. So pay attention tonight if you're watching us live, or if you're watching the replay, and see how you can get going there. We've tried to give you a whole spectrum of ways to get yourself into the air again. Tonight we got a couple of guests that have flown in our 301 class, like I said, just a little over a week ago. And we will talk a little bit about the 101 in person this Saturday night at Sky Harbor Airport, where Southwest Airlines lets us use one of their airplanes. And then the following morning, this Sunday, we have an online class for anybody else in the world, or even if you live in Phoenix and you want to check in. Both of those are free. And then we have our monthly coaching, next month's coaching group webinar coming up on December 21st. And then we'll talk about a couple of things in the news in terms of aviation. And of course, we'll answer your questions. First thing we always like to highlight is the Fearless Flight Birds of a Feather group, Facebook group. It's private. And it's exclusive to anybody who wants to join, and we encourage you to do that because it's a great place to get both give and receive feedback and help and support. And we're up. We got to be close to 1,500 people now. So, okay, tonight our guests are two people that I had the pleasure of flying with from Phoenix to Burbank a week ago last Saturday, Jenny Witten and Drew Raskin. I'm going to ask them to join us here, and we'll just see what it was like for them. Hi, Jenny. Hey, Drew. And Drew's got his best buddy there who's trying to steal the screen time there. Yeah,
sorry.
It phases green there. So anyway, welcome you guys, and thanks for taking time out to do this and just share your experiences with people out there who might be interested. And so Jenny, I'll start with you. So what was it like for you? Why did you feel like you needed to end up flying with me of all people?
Sure. So a little backstory on me. Hi, my name is Jenny. I live in Phoenix. 28-year-old young professional woman. And for me, I had a large degree of embarrassment when I would fly and cry because of it. I haven't always had a fear of flying. When I was probably about 20 years old was when it really set in. I had a couple of really rough flights by myself that scared me. I got to the point where for the last 6 or 7 years, I haven't been able to fly without my husband and or Valium in my system. Usually both, and even with both of those things, it still wasn't very tolerable for me. I would cry, especially during takeoff, and passengers would be like, "Is she okay?" And which was very sweet, but also just made me feel very self-conscious and embarrassed. So it kind of came to head, and I decided to pull the trigger on all of these courses. And I went through all of the online modules, listened to Capt Ron and his team talk about how safe airplanes are, and the statistics that made me feel a lot better as far as like you're more likely to be elected president than die in a plane crash, which was a really comforting statistic for me. learning about the mechanics of flying, all of the background checks that go into airplanes and how well maintenance they are made me feel a lot better. Any specifics I had concern wise about like, oh, well, what if the engine stops? What happens then? Captain Ron was able to talk to me about how there are procedures in place for specific situations like that and how they make it safe for us. And
So for
then
you, it was more about the mechanics of the flying
yeah,
and
just not like
was it really?
stressing things would,
Yeah.
yeah, the
Yeah.
mechanics wouldn't fail and the computers wouldn't, something crazy wouldn't happen. But so then I did the 301 class with Ron, Captain Ron and Drew, Saturday before last. And I used the harmonizer during takeoff. I practiced with that for a few weeks, probably actually about a month beforehand. I listened to it a fair amount of times. And I focused on my breathing like they really talk about in the modules. And I found that that helped me a lot. And I didn't cry and I didn't have my husband or any Valium. So I felt really proud of that. It was a really special moment for me. And I feel like now if I had to fly by myself, I could do it successfully without medication or support. And I'm really excited about that and very thankful to have had this opportunity.
Oh, thanks, Jenny. Appreciate that. Drew, how about you? I think we made first contact through your mom, didn't we?
Yeah, I actually went to Captain Ron's class probably 6 or 7 years ago, the 101
Oh,
in
that's
Sky
right.
Harbor.
That's right.
So, but yeah, so I'll kind of do what Jenny did. Drew, I'm 25, young guy. But for me, it's a little bit different. Like last year, I was flying quite a bit for work, short flights, San Jose, Houston, Dallas, and I was starting to feel pretty good. I've always had a pretty severe fear of flying, even when I was a kid, and my parents made me take trips to Hawaii and Minnesota and Florida. So I got on planes, but wasn't a huge fan of it.
Yeah.
But finally, back in my 20s, I got back into flying because I stopped when I was about 15 or 16. Um, it was for me wanting to get back in the air. I think when I had stopped after last year, I hadn't been in a while. So I wanted to kind of get back out there. My girlfriend and I, we had some trips planned and I was starting to, feel a little nervous. So I said, why don't I, do a flight with Captain Ron because I had known about his program for a long time. And, maybe that will, help me feel better. And it actually did. And for me, it's a little bit different than it is for Jennifer, just because the statistics maybe make her feel better, but that's not necessarily super comforting to me. And that's, I don't know
Right.
if that's it's probably split half. I know a lot of people with just generalized anxiety, it doesn't really matter what the
No,
statistics
no.
say.
Yeah. It's
You may
basically
not.
the mind doesn't it doesn't deal in probabilities. It
Yeah,
deals in possibilities. So,
yeah,
I typically say, your chances are 1 in 33.2 million to die in an airplane crash. And the person says, yeah, but you didn't say 0 in 33.2
yeah,
million.
yeah, exactly. So it's a little bit harder. And then for me, it was getting back on the plane and just saying that I got on the plane and flew. That was what was helpful, was just
Yeah.
saying, I was actually able to get on the flight, do it, and then get off the flight. I was okay. I mean, I did take a Xanax. I usually take two. So, maybe that's a little bit of an upgrade, but, it also, I mean, it is nice to have Captain Ron there as well. It was, if we started feeling comfortable, Jenny and I, we both looked at each other like, hey, we're kind of feeling a little froggy on the plane. So we, looked at Capt Ron. He just kind of let us know that everything was all right. It was a great flight. It was, and the weather wasn't even great here in Phoenix when we took off. It was rainy, like for the first time in like months.
Yeah.
And we did great. Jennifer and I both did. We did awesome.
And when what was it like, what kind of anxiety did you have when you got to the airport and gonna jump on the airplane when we did the first leg there? Was it, 1 through 10, where would
Yeah.
you say you
Probably about like a 6.5 to a 7. So,
okay.
not, like I could deal with it, but it wasn't,
Yeah. Yeah.
comfortable. It was
Yeah.
still like I had some uncomfortability with it, which was, not, it's not easy, but,
Sure. Sure.
it was just one of those things that I just wanted to push through and do. I mean, my flight, is coming up on Saturday. So I was like, I just got to get back on the plane and do it.
Yeah. And how about you, Jenny? Where were you at when we got to the airport and it came time to get on the airplane?
It's kind of funny because I think Drew and I talked about this where his anxiety levels were a little higher going and mine was a little
Yeah.
higher coming back, weirdly enough, which I think his is probably more typical. But for me, it was like I usually have a few days rest period when I go on a trip in between flights to like
Yeah.
reset and
Yeah.
readjust. So going, I would say maybe a 5 and coming back like a 6.5.
Okay.
But it was manageable. I'm normally like, at the maximum an 8 or a 9 during those
Yeah.
trying
And I
so
say to people, the key is to get it down away from 10 when you're getting on the airplane, because it's going to fluctuate during the flight, and you want to have a little bit of wiggle room to do that stuff. And I think I think you, Jenny, when people who are more worried about the actual mechanical operation of the flight, I think they tend to be reset more readily in that, where people like Drew, where it's more just that, this non, mechanical worry. It's just, just the flight itself. Once you do it, to me, it's like riding a big scary roller coaster. The first time you get on and you ride it, it's kind of, it is what it is. And then the second time you do it, it takes, it's not a big deal anymore because you just did that. But I think for people who are more mechanically oriented, or in terms of their fear, I think it is like that. And do you find any attitude, or obviously you change your behavior by getting on the airplane, but anything attitude wise that, between, and it's only been a short time, so it's hard to make much out of that, between now and before you started working on it, on getting on an airplane?
Yeah, for me, definitely. One thing I can say is I'm no longer having dreams about airplanes crashing, which is really
Okay.
good for me because I used to have that if I had a trip coming up at least every like week, once a week or so before my trip for months. I have that kind of dream, but it's actually been like months since I've had that kind of dream.
Yeah. Yeah. And how about you, Drew?
I mean, if we're just talking about, generalized, getting on an airplane, I'm feeling pretty good considering I have a flight, coming up. So feeling better than I was before I went to Burbank, which is, a plus for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And because you will typically feel a little bit of a reset, in
Mhm.
that. So what have you done now? What kind of support system do you have, personally, or other people, and your fiance, I think, Drew?
No, just girlfriend,
Girlfriend. Okay. Whoops. I
That's right.
Yeah. Anyway, so she's really supportive, and I wanted to point
Mhm.
that out, that
Yeah. She's great. I mean, my mom's obviously, super involved in trying to help me out. I
yeah.
mean, she was kind of the one who had reached out to you to begin with. Um, and she has a little bit, my mom, has a little bit, fear of flying herself, that she's kind of gotten over using, your program, which, she's really enjoyed. But I would say my support system's very good. Allison has been a tremendous help, not only, as a support system, but also forcing me to want to get back on an airplane.
Yeah. Yeah. And how about you? I know you mentioned your husband's really supportive as well.
Yeah, he is. So whenever we fly together, he's very supportive of me. And he's very comforting. And so he's kind of been like my safety net, like my fallback for those kind of situations. Which it was important for me to be able to do that kind of thing without him, especially, wanting to be parents someday, making sure that when we have kids, I can fly with them by myself and meet their needs and not be worried about my own. But yeah, he encouraged me to do this class. He's like, I know it's a lot of money, but it's worth it. It's your life, it's your sanity. So that's really helpful.
Yeah, and I want to mention there, Eric, and I know your father-in-law, because he was a flight crew training instructor, and so he was responsible for keeping Eric and I current on all the things many times now, and he's now a pilot for American as well.
Yeah, he's
So
so great. He helps me too, actually. Like if there's any specific
yeah,
things I think of last minute, he's always happy to be like, well, let's talk about that. And, we've
yeah,
had conversations about safety that make me feel much better.
I was going to
yeah.
ask you if he'd been able to be any help to you in terms of thinking about this stuff.
Yeah, he was the one who originally suggested this class to me. So I mean, that's made all the difference.
Mm-hmm.
So Drew, you got a flight coming up this weekend, Phoenix, Vegas. And so looking toward this flight, how does it compare to like when we were going to fly, for example, the only other recent experience you got, where are you at? You feel more settled than you did before, or?
Yeah, I mean, definitely feel more settled. I think it helps a lot, that it's basically like an up and down flight. I mean, it's like literally 45 minutes in the air. I'm not super worried at the moment. I mean, it's only Tuesday right now, but we'll see how the week goes. But going into Burbank, if we're looking at Tuesday before Burbank or like Tuesday before a flight that I had, on a Saturday in the past, definitely better, feeling good.
Yeah. Yeah. And both of you, the thing that a lot of people who are watching or will watch this say is, yeah, they don't sound like they were really that afraid to fly. So I like to have both of you respond to that. What was it like for you when, you still flew, right, Drew? I mean, you kept flying despite the fact that your anxiety was driving you crazy.
So I actually I had flown to Los Angeles with my dad. I was about 15 or 16. I didn't fly again until I was about 23. So I took 8 years off. So it was, quite the anxiety. I mean, my parents, I missed funerals. I missed, family vacations because of my fear of flying.
Yeah.
And I finally had to get back on because of work. My work needed me to start traveling. So, it was, pretty severe. I mean, I missed some pretty big, life things. So to those people, I was pretty afraid of flying, but getting better for sure.
Cool. And again, pat yourself on the back for having the courage to do that. But anyway, just the message to people out there is it always looks worse from the inside looking out than it does from the outside looking in. So, and how about you? How bad was it when
Yeah. So, for me, I didn't really have any super long periods in between. I think my longest was probably during COVID, so maybe like 3-ish years. But for me, like I found myself when we would be planning family vacations, trying to steer the conversation into places that were drivable for me feasibly. Which I felt kind of guilty about, but I was also like, I can't face a flight. I'm not prepared to do that. Even though I had to eventually, but it still was really hard for me. And then also just, like I feel like I can present myself really well in this format. I'm at home, I'm calm, but watch me on an airplane in August and I was having a complete panic attack. And it's just depending on the situation. So I think it's hard to tell, like in this kind of a format, how severe it is for people. But all I can say is that this class has really helped me so much, and I'm really glad that I was able to do it because it was pretty bad there for a while.
Yeah, and that's a good point you made. It's hard to convey sitting here right now what it's like, even if I was talking to somebody who's afraid to fly and hasn't flown. But I tell you, the first time I ever saw somebody literally break down and just could not get into the jetway, it was a real eye opener for me. And I have nothing but empathy for people. And it's so hard for people who are not fearful flyers and don't get it to accept the fact that some people, it's just that big barrier. And we all have things around there, but and as Drew shared, general anxiety disorders are very common for people. And so, but again, my heart goes out to you and all the people that I've met in the past 36 years, because it is a real pain in the butt.
Yeah. All I can say is like during that moment, you're sure you're going to die. You just feel like this is the end, it's coming. But then just to be able to fly and not feel like that was such a big relief.
Yeah. I'm glad. Advice to people out there who may be watching or maybe get a glimpse of this and are thinking, I can't get over this. No matter what those two people say, I can't do this. What would you say to them?
Drew, you go first, so it gives me time to think.
Okay. For me, it's I think it's because for Jennifer and I, it's very different. It sounds like our fears and our anxieties are very different. I would say you obviously can do it, even though it feels like you may not be able to. It's a seamless, what's the word I'm thinking of? Seamless process with Capt Ron. It's just He kind of just, you get there, he walks you to the gate. It's very calm. You know, we went on a nice Saturday. It's just very easy with Captain Ron. It may feel like it's going to be, you know, super hard. And, you know, for some people, I guess it will be. But speaking to my experience, it was fantastic. And I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I don't know that I can say it any better than that. I guess I would add for anyone who feels like, well, that's all good and well for them, but I don't think I can do it. Maybe just challenge yourself to take the course, take that first step, see how you feel after you've watched all the information that Captain Ron has out there, gone through the exercises, and you might find yourself surprised.
Yeah. Do something is what I say, you know,
Yeah.
and don't quit. Just keep educating yourself and learn something and just see where it takes you and all that. So anyway, well, you both got flights coming up. Drew's flying this weekend, and then you're flying in December.
Yep.
Right? So we'll look to, I hope you can stay connected and at least send me a text, you know, when you're getting on or flying or whatever. I can't wait to just wish you guys well and encourage you, whatever, and you know how to get a hold of us. So thanks for coming tonight. I really appreciate you taking time on this, and I really want to compliment you on the courage to follow through and do it, because that's what's real. So thanks a lot.
Good
Thank
luck,
you.
you guys. And
Thanks.
Jenny, if you think of it, say hello to your father-in-law for me.
Okay,
Tell
I
him-
will.
And thank him for his service.
Oh, okay, definitely. I will.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Hey,
Bye.
thanks to you, Jenny. Appreciate it. Okay, so let's let me go back here and I'll share my screen again. We're going to talk about some things we've got coming up. Okay, 2 things this weekend. This says online class. However, well, the first one we'll talk about is we'll do the online first. No, you know what? I'm going to switch those back and do them the other way. So,
Yeah, it's the next slide.
yeah, there you go. Okay, so for anybody out there who happens to live in the Phoenix area and you don't know what to do, what your first step is, come on down to the Phoenix airport this Saturday night, 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock. The folks at Southwest Airlines are kind enough to give us an airplane parked at the gate. I promise I will not move it. And it's a great opportunity. We use the airplane for a classroom, and it's a couple hours from the time you get there till the time we leave, but it's a great opportunity to do some exposure. If you have issues with we call it claustrophobia now, you know, you don't like getting in the airplane and the thought of them closing the door on you and you not having access to get out. So that is again this weekend, and Dieter will put there's the link up there. You can go in there and register. And let me know that you're coming, and we get free parking at the airport Terminal 4, and Southwest Airlines gives us escort passes, so we get through security. So it's just like taking a real flight. The only difference is we won't move the airplane. So we really, really encourage you, if you're here and you haven't, even if you've done it before, come on out. And one of the first things that you'll be surprised is how many other people are there just like you. Okay. And then for anybody who can't get there for whatever reason, even if you live in the Phoenix area, but certainly if you live around the world, on Sunday morning, I have an online class. I call it Clear for Takeoff 101 online. And it's a Zoom webinar, and same kind of thing. The only thing is we have to imagine we're in the airplane, because we obviously won't be on that, but it's a great opportunity to get your feet wet, figure out what this is all about, and maybe do a personal assessment and see if you can't get used to find a path to get out of this. And we always have Q&A on that. So if you got any questions, bring them on either Saturday night or Sunday morning. Okay, and again, see, I'm looking for, well, it's the same link as we had before, and when you get to the URL, you'll get an opportunity to pick whether you want to register for the online or the in-person class there. So, okay.
And let me just reiterate, because there's a just there's a question. Yes, both of these classes are free. The one at the airport, the one-on-one, is free as well. But we do ask that you register and confirm, because obviously you need to go through security, and so that we have the escort passes ready for you. You got to register and then confirm your attendance for the upcoming class.
Yeah. And I think I'll talk about this. This is the other online event that we have coming up every month. The third Thursday, we put on our live monthly group coaching webinar. And the next one coming up in the theme, of course, for the foreseeable future is overcoming flight anxiety, because that's what this is all about. And we're going to talk about one of the biggest bugaboos, and that is flying over water with no place to land. How do we do that? And obviously we do it successfully, because you don't see headlines in the newspaper every day that somebody landed in the Atlantic or the Pacific or some big body of water. So that's going to be the theme. And every monthly coaching session has a little bit of psychoeducation. We'll talk about fear of flying and overcoming flight anxiety. We'll talk about the specifics of how we fly safely over water, and in places where extended times where we don't have any suitable place to land. And then the last half of the webinar is dedicated to you, the students, to do one-on-one coaching with me. And so it's a great opportunity to get your questions asked and to learn something about perhaps how you can go get better at flying, whether it's over water or just flying anywhere in general. Okay.
The date
yes, thank you. When is the real date of that?
It's December 21st, and I've already put it in the chat as well. So
December 21st, 2023, not 3023.
That would be an interesting one.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm probably not going to make that one.
I'm not even sure if I'm going to be around for that one. That's funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's 6:30 Pacific, so 9:30 Eastern time.
For an hour and a half. And it's a great opportunity, lots of participation, and it's just a great place to come and get your questions asked. And it's part of our new ongoing membership program. If you have any doubts as to what you want to do, this would be a great place to start. Just come and join us, listen to other people, and just keep whacking away at your fears, and you'll get in the air. Okay. All right. Couple of things in the news that are kind of interesting here. Just in general, it has a picture of Southwest here, talks about why U.S. travelers are snubbing budget airlines. Just talks about the third quarter. And I like to bring this up because anything that warrants headlines in the news about the airlines, whether it's flight safety issues or potential flight safety issues, or just the airlines in general, it catches people's attention because it's rare. But this talks about how the budget airlines, the Spirits and even Southwest here, although Southwest made a little bit more money over this last quarter, didn't do so well. And the reason they attribute to that is when we're in an inflationary economy and money gets tighter, people who don't have it don't fly as much. And those are the people who tend to fly in the bottom tiered airlines. And they're bottom tiered not because of safety, they're bottom tiered because of the price of tickets that they sell typically. But the good news is they still keep the pressure on the big guys, the United, the Deltas, the Americans, and the Southwest to keep the fares down. And over this period of time, domestic travel was down a little bit, but the people that were flying internationally, and they talk about a revenge demand. People, because of COVID, people wanted to get across the Pacific and across the Atlantic there. So I just thought it was newsworthy to if you read anything about this, and they had a dramatic photo here. That's what it looked like at the counter at Spirit. Not many people and not as many people flying. So they're always out there. But Eric can attest to this. what do you, it doesn't matter to Gary. 1 year it's a good year, 1 year it's a bad year, and then 4 years it's a bad year, and then you know, and so it just goes up and down all the time. So anyway, okay, and this was something that I thought you might catch your attention, or might catch your attention, and talking about air safety. Russia says it was caught off guard after country loses 76 plane. And what does it mean to lose 76 planes? Well, it doesn't mean they couldn't find them. What it means is they lease airplane, Russian airlines lease airplanes as a way of acquiring equipment to fly, like most of the other airlines in the world. But with the Ukraine war and the economic sanctions that have been put on Russia, airplane companies who lease airplanes to airlines, they have in the lease agreement, they have an obligation. The airline that flies them has an obligation to keep them fixed, obviously, because it's like you renting or leasing a rental or a car. You're not, the leasing company, when you turn it back in, if you beat the heck out of it, you'll have to pay a penalty for that. And it's much, obviously much more serious when you're a leasing company and you own airplanes that you want to lease out. If they come back and they're not airworthy, or they become non-airworthy, it's a cause for concern. And of course, with the sanctions against Russia, they have not been able to get genuine, authentic parts, or any kind of parts for that. And so they've been put at a disadvantage. And so 76 of those airplanes, when they went through countries where they could repossess them, they did that. So and people ask me, am I worried about flying on any other airline, stuff like that? I would be more discretionary when I was flying in Uzbekistan and places like that. How about you, Eric?
Yeah, same thing. And it's not necessarily ability or desire, but their ability to maintain them. Because of the parts embargo, not only did they lose the airplanes, they're taking airplanes they have apart to use the parts on other airplanes. So if they start with a fleet size X, then pretty soon they're X minus 20 and X minus 40 and X minus 60. And who knows how they're keeping track of that when they're cannibalizing airplanes they do have to put parts on airplanes they have there. The maintenance tracking is non-existent, and that wouldn't be real comforting for me, notwithstanding ticket prices.
Yeah. So that in addition to all the regulations and the compliance that we often talk about, why airplanes are maintained to the standards that they are, leasing is another one. So there's an economic cost to airlines if you can't lease them, and you simply can't fly them. So it's just interesting to talk about, I think, or to mention out there. And I had a little comedy here.
Oh, okay.
I was just going to say, you can bet that Comrade Putin probably doesn't have to worry about flying on an airplane that hasn't been safety qualified.
I think there might be something in his philosophy that may prevent him from leasing an Airbus or a Boeing aircraft.
Yeah, for sure.
And as I told Ron earlier, if in fact that's still the real Putin, if he's alive, and some of the intelligence services haven't said there's one spare Putin, there's like 3 of them. And they said one guy's easy to pick out because he puts his watch on his wrong wrist all the time. They said the other 2 guys are harder to pick out.
That's why we have Eric here for the information that nobody else carries. And so,
that is very true. I do have there is a question, and the question is about maintenance. Not Russia, but the maintenance here in the US. So what about smaller airports? Do they have the same equipment, technology, and maintenance crew to address any issues if they arise on flights?
That's a great question. I think that's the first time we've ever had that. So Eric, I'll just throw some questions. You and I can talk here. So you and I, we got an airplane. We're flying an Airbus today, and we go from Phoenix to Des Moines. Okay, Iowa. And we get there and we have a write-up on the airplane and we can't fly until it's addressed. So what do we do? And
Exactly.
we don't have maintenance there because we
don't.
Okay.
So
All right.
the airport has a few maintenance technicians on staff, contract maintenance technicians that will do work for all the major airlines. And what happens
That
is
has to be prior approved, right? I mean, it isn't just we go knock on a
yeah,
door.
It's not like we just hired Joe yesterday and you're going to love him. Yeah, these guys are all fully serviced techs, but they don't work for any of the airlines per se. But if we go in there and break our widget and we write up that the widget is faulty, then the contract maintenance person will come out and we will talk to our company mechanics and say, hey, we have this problem with the widget and we have the contract mechanic out here. Number one, can he work on it? And we'll let you two guys talk. Our maintenance people in Phoenix, for example, would talk to the new guy in Des Moines and say, yeah, you can do this, this, and this. And if you do this and repair it, then we'll approve it per our authorization letter in Phoenix that you did it per our instructions exactly right. Or if he can't do it, or if it's broken and it cannot be worked on there, it's possible we could dispatch under what we call a minimum equipment list that allows some items to be inoperative for some types of operations. And the minimum equipment list is very comprehensive, telling you what you can and cannot do. And it's possible we could leave there and go back to a maintenance base, either with passengers or without passengers. And the third, the most unpalatable option is, no, the widget is broken, the contract mechanic can't fix it, and we can't go without it. Then the airplane may have to sit on the ground and have mechanics from Phoenix fly in with the part and fix the airplane on the ground in Des Moines, and it can't go anywhere until they've done it. But it will be done correctly and per regulation, no matter which one of those avenues is taken.
Yeah, and as you pointed out, it's very specific. It's part of the plan that has to be approved by the FAA regarding maintenance before the airplane can sell their first ticket. And they have an exhaustive process to go in and they interview the players in the company, and they have to answer all these questions appropriately and correctly in order to do that. So as Eric said, we can have an airplane that has a mechanic or a maintenance problem, and sometimes we can defer it. Sometimes we can get it fixed by a non-company mechanic, and sometimes we're stuck with it. And we got to fix it. And the most obvious thing is every once in a while we'll have an airplane that'll have an engine problem that they detect once they're on the ground. All that, and there's no substitute. You can't even fly it with just the crew or anything, and they got to bring another engine in. I memean, obviously that's the worst case scenario. But they have to rent hangar space and all kinds of stuff. It's very expensive for the airlines to do. But that's another thing where reliability in the era that we live in is really good because it helps the airlines keep maintenance costs down there. So, but we do not cut corners, and we just can't. You can't cut corners. You have to fix it. No matter whether you're making money or losing money as an airline, you have to keep.
That applies to everybody, all the airlines, all work the same way. And if the airline is struggling financially, the very first thing the FAA will look at is watch their maintenance like a hawk to make sure that they are not cutting any corners.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine who's still flying the other day, and Eric probably knew this already. I just hadn't thought about it. Now, everybody gets issued a tablet, usually an iPad or something like that. And what one of the things that my friend Mark was telling me was, which I didn't think about, should have been obvious, is now in the old days when we had a physical logbook on the airplane, you can't keep the pages for the last 15 years, the book would be too big to fit in the cockpit. So they would just keep the last week or two if there were write-ups in there. Now you have access to those, understand, through that. Take a look through the history and stuff. So it's just another opportunity for pilots to look back and take a look at the airworthiness of the airplane and any trends or anything like that. Any other questions?
No, but I do want to here at the end do a quick shout out to, and sorry for butchering the name, Jan Prokopy. I'm not sure, but Jan made it 2 days ago, made it successfully to Amsterdam. So just big shout out, and the relief in the post in the Birds of a Feather, he said, you know, the further he went closer to Amsterdam, the more relief he felt, and it all shed. So very,
And
very
I'll throw out another one. Let me find it here. John, and I forgot John's last name. John he was doing residency in Chicago. He's from Poland, and he returned home to Poland, and I've been working with him over the last 3 weeks, and he made it yesterday at 8:12 a.m. to Poland, to Warsaw. And I had a good time talking to him about my limited Warsaw experience and my Polish experience over the summer. But anyway, so congratulations to him. I've had a number of people, as I always do, talk about their traveling and making it to different destinations and all that. So keep up the good work, everybody, and keep coming back to Fearless Flight Live. We really enjoy it. We appreciate your participation. So anyway,
good job, John. And there's lots of stories when Ron says, "What's your why? What did you miss? What family thing did you miss?" But I think being an MD and completing a residency and not being able to get back on the airplane to go back to your home country would almost top the pile of being the worst stories we'd ever heard after all that work.
Yeah. So anyway, without in the absence of any other questions, we'll thank you all for watching, and come back next week for another episode of this live. Thanks, Eric. Thanks, Dieter, and hi to Diane somewhere in the periphery. And we'll see you again next week for Fearless Flight Live. Have a great week, everybody. Bye-bye.
You guys.